Welcome into the Live from the Plains podcast. My name is Daniel Locke. This guy's Logan Fowler. And once again, we're coming to you to recap a game that was not a lot of fun to watch.
Mm. Nope, it was a bad, ugly game. Two really bad football teams.
Before,
Yeah.
before we get into that, happy Sunday to everyone out there. Had a great morning at church. Had a nice conversation with my mom. Was so excited to watch the Saints game. Not even going to talk about that because, yeah, I'm footballed out until Auburn and Oklahoma kick off at 2:30 p.m. Central Time next week. But Logan, how's your Sunday been?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I did the same thing you did. I went to church this morning, and I went and I watched the Saints game.
Look at that. The Saints fan
I mean,
movement on the
yeah,
Live from the Plains is growing.
yeah, I did not probably care as much about it as you did, but it was still a good game to watch. Low scoring, but
I feel bad for my roommates. They had to endure some screaming.
yeah,
Hopefully, no one was trying to be too productive today.
yeah. Well, that happens.
Yeah. Speaking of things that happen, sometimes you drop a game that you're favored to win at home. And then sometimes you do that for the second time in the past 3 weeks. And then sometimes the head coach of the football team you cover is under attack by one of his former quarterbacks on Twitter.
Yeah.
So all that is stuff we're going to unpack today. Like you said before we started, we don't know how long this is going to go. We're just going to kind of freeball this. This could be a 15-minute episode. This could be an hour and a half conversation. So tune in, buckle up, and let's get after it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, obviously, just like you said, man, they dropped the second straight home game of the 2024 season. Have lost. Let's see. Auburn is now 4-8 in its last 12 power conference matchups. Auburn,
Not a winning formula, is it?
nope. Auburn is dead last in the country in turnovers this season. 14 through the first 4 games. They had 20 all of last season. You have thrown 8 interceptions between Hank Brown and Peyton Thorne in your last 2 power conference matchups.
And as our good friend and sports reporter for the Auburn Villager, Matthew Wallace, pointed out, it really does feel like Auburn's regressed.
Yeah. I mean, it does. It really does.
Like, we're at that point. Like, this is a conversation we're having now.
It's definitely not a conversation that I thought we would be having after 4 weeks into Hugh Freeze's second year here at Auburn.
Yeah. I fully expected this team to be 4-0 heading into Oklahoma, and they are far from it.
I mean, yeah, and they're this is crazy. They're 10 turnovers away from it. I mean, they turned the ball over 5 times against Cal, and they're still in that game to the very end.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, this is hypothetical, but you got to think that if they didn't turn the ball over 5 times in that game, they probably win.
Yeah, if you limit that to 3 or 4.
Same thing as yesterday. 5 turnovers. And the thing was with Auburn's offense yesterday is they outgained Arkansas by like 97 yards.
Yep.
93 yards, something like that. It's 90 something yards. But I mean, their drives, their offensive drives, they looked good. They were moving the ball. They just, I mean, like, shoot. I've never seen a team that shoots herself in the foot like this Auburn team, man. After that Damari Alston fumble, I literally just sat there. I was like, dude, like, you can't make this up. Like, you can't even make this up. That's crazy.
My initial game story yesterday, like, that was literally the theme of it. I just kind of went through all the miscues and mistakes and times that Auburn shot itself in the foot. It was like, there are 2 things that I think if they don't happen, I think Auburn wins this game. The first one is if Jalen McLeod doesn't get that late hit penalty and the drive that Arkansas scored on, which was the only scoring in the first half,
That was
period.
Austin Keys, I think.
Oh, Jalen McLeod. Austin, no.
It was Austin Keys.
Okay, you're right. I'm sorry. My bad, Jalen. Austin Keys. If he doesn't get that penalty, crap. Now I'm scared that I messed that up in my writing. Oh well, I'll fix it later if I did. Um, I'll own my mistakes, but I don't think I. We'll see. I'll go reread everything. Anyway, um, if he doesn't get that late hit penalty, and Auburn gets to stay on the field, and Arkansas doesn't, or Auburn doesn't have to stay off the field, they get all the defense gets off the field. Um, and that's a touchdown off the board right there. And if Damari Alston doesn't fumble that ball into the end zone, that's recovered by Arkansas for a touchback. That puts a touchdown on the board for Auburn because they would have had first and goal from the 1. And Auburn's offense is bad, but I'm confident they would have found a way to punch it in if they had 4 plays from the 1-yard line. I mean, this team's been disappointing in a lot of other assets, so maybe they would find a way to blow that. It wouldn't shock me now that I say that out loud. But yeah, that we can just assume that they score a touchdown there. And then Auburn heads into the break up 7-0. And then who knows what happens in the second half because they get the ball. We'll also assume that Peyton Thorne comes out. If Auburn's able to put that touchdown on the board, I'm not exactly sure if that still would have happened the same way or not. I think it would have because, I mean, that didn't have anything to do with Hank Brown's performance.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, you got a good point. I mean, that second drive where Austin Keys gets the late hit, you're a 3 and out. You forced a 3 and out on that drive. That drive ended up being 15 plays, and they consumed 81 yards to get a touchdown on that drive after the miscue.
Which is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, can't have those. You can't have those. And it's Austin Guys is he's an upperclassman. I mean, like,
Yeah.
those are mistakes that Auburn had a lot of moments yesterday where I'm like, man, this team is really undisciplined. Like, this
Yeah.
team is they're undisciplined. They've shown, throughout the first few weeks. I mean, with the fumbles, interceptions, with penalties. I mean, you just add all that up and you're just like, wow, like it's not a very well coached football team right now.
Not at all.
I mean, that's not to say that the coaching staff is terrible. That's not what I'm saying. But there are little mistakes out there on that field that can be, fixed through proper coaching.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's just kind of baffling, dude. It really is just to think about all. Like I said, bro, you just can't make it up. Like, you literally could not make up what happened yesterday. And like I said when we first started this show, those are 2 really bad football teams. Arkansas is not a good football team at all.
Yeah.
They are not. And you have now let 2 very mediocre football teams come into Jordan-Hare Stadium and beat you.
Yep. And these were games that just about everyone had written down as a win.
Yeah.
And now I feel like more about just kind of the aftermath of this game, more than just about the game in general, is we were talking about shifting energy on Thursday. Well, it's definitely shifted now.
Mhm.
Now they've done it. And I think that playing Oklahoma next week, their first SEC road game, and it being the first time the Sooners have ever made their way to Jordan-Hare, I think it'll still be packed next week. But if that Vanderbilt game was next week, I would be concerned about the crowd for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. It stinks. I think I said this after the Cal game. We kind of talked about the fans. Auburn fans always show up. Uh,
Hmm.
that was a really good environment to start the game off yesterday. That place was loud. It was rocking. It was packed. Um, I mean, it was they were in it. The fans were there. They were supporting. Um, and obviously, after the game, throughout the game, social media, um, fans take out their anger on the message boards and Twitter and all that. But I
And
mean,
on sports
rightfully so.
writers, as you and I found out.
Right. Yeah. Rightfully so, though, because there's a difference. Anyone who's calling for Hugh Freeze's head, I think that's not necessary. But there's a difference in outrage and calling for Hugh Freeze's head, and Auburn fans are mad. They've dealt with very mediocre football teams the past, we'll just say since 2020. I mean, like we said, man, at some point there's got to be some improvement made on the field.
Yeah.
Uh, Auburn is now after Saturday, they're under 500. Yet again under Hugh Freeze's tutelage. Like I said, they're 4-8 against their last power conference opponents. It's not good. That's not the standard that Auburn should be, uh, you know, accustomed to.
No. And I have a couple thoughts related to that. Number one, as Brian Matthews of AuburnSports.com asked Hugh Freeze in the post-game press conference last night, can you expect Auburn to keep recruiting at this level um, with these results in the field? And I don't think you can at all.
I think that Hugh Freeze knew what to say initially
He didn't.
when Brian asked that question.
No. And I read an article that Caleb Jones, also our good friend, we had him on the show a week or two ago, also of AuburnSports.com, wrote about, help me with the kid's name, 5-star receiver coming to Bama.
Caleb Cunningham.
Yes. And he said, I didn't see what I wanted to see. Well, you're not alone, Caleb. There are 88,000 people who are right there with you. But that's not good. And you're trying to flip Deuce Knight. Luckily, Notre Dame's not really turning up the heat on their on-field product either. So I could see somebody like this is unrelated. I could see somebody else sweeping in and flipping Deuce Knight. That's not Auburn or Notre Dame. I really could because neither of those programs can be showing him anything that makes him think, yes, I want to be there right now. But the recruiting thing, like that's number one. And then the second thing is this game and the Cal game were two games that were among your more winnable ones of the year, without a doubt. So now you're 2-2 heading into Oklahoma. Let's say you lose that. You're 2-3. Now you've got to go to Athens. You're not winning that, probably. You're 2-4. Then you've got to go to Missouri. You're 2-5. Then you got to go to Kentucky. That's a coin toss. Let's say you lose. You're 2-6. Then you got to come home and play Vanderbilt. If that game was next week, I still think Auburn would probably win, but there's a very real chance that they lose. So let's just say that happens. Now you're 2-7. Then you get to play ULM and General Booty. Okay, General Booty's good at football. I don't care what anyone says. I think Auburn wins that game as of now, but you can't assume that. But we'll assume it. So 3-7. Now you've got Texas A&M. That's a loss, probably. So that's 3-8. You've got to go in the Bryant Denny Stadium, 3-8, and play a safe to say, probable top 5 team in Alabama. Definitely a top 10 team at that point. I mean, I know they have a tough schedule. There's a decent chance they lose to Georgia next week. I think they drop to LSU on the road. But still, I think Alabama will be a top 10 team when the Iron Bowl is played.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about it last night with somebody in the box. It's
You
this
mean
is
you talk to people
Auburn's
in the box who aren't me? I'm just
sometimes.
kidding. Go ahead. Go ahead.
There's this is Auburn's most manageable schedule
Yeah.
that I can remember.
Mhm.
And That's kind of what the frustrating thing is for Auburn fans and for coaches and players is if you could have put a product on the field that just if you just improved on your play from last year, man, you're looking at like I mean, you just pointed out, like you're 4-0 right now. Oklahoma hasn't shown anything spectacular. Their offense is really not good. They're still struggling to find their offensive identity. Missouri had to go to 2 overtimes last night to beat Vanderbilt. Obviously, Georgia's Georgia, so that's still that. Kentucky, like you just said, I mean, Kentucky's not anything special. A&M had to fight for their lives yesterday against Bowling Green. I mean, Alabama's still Alabama. You know, it's still a game that you could lose, but they're not the same Alabama. I mean, I'm not convinced that they're the same Alabama team that we saw under Nick Saban. The wins were there.
Yeah.
They were there, and after what I've seen the past 4 weeks, truthfully, I don't see Auburn making a bowl game, and
I don't either.
that goes back to what you just said. That's the regression. I mean, Auburn regressed in year 2 under Hugh Freeze. So far, they have not shown any signs of improvement.
Yeah, because I feel like just kind of the general consensus for a benchmark for Auburn this season was 8 wins. It seemed like that was the number that everyone A expected, and B that was kind of what they were willing to accept. Which kind of leads to the next conversation is I don't I think something catastrophic would have to happen beyond what's already happened for Auburn to fire freeze this year. And no one should be calling for that yet. Like I agree with what you said earlier. Like we're not at that point yet. But let's just say that it's November. You've lost all those games. You're what's that? 2-6 coming into the ULM game.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. It's been 3 years since Auburn was ranked in the AP poll, almost. The last time was the week of Mississippi State in 2021.
Dude,
So
I saw a social media post about that today. Um, it was a play where Bo Nix hit Kobe Hudson in the back of the end zone, and it was like Auburn has not been the same since this play. And I was like, wait a minute, like that is so true.
yeah,
Auburn was up like what 20-3 or something.
23.
Yeah, on Mississippi State that day, and then they came back, won the game, and it really hasn't, dude. I mean, Auburn has not been the same since that play. That's crazy.
Right. So at that point, if they lose to ULM, I think they fire freeze.
Yeah, I don't see a world where that happens.
I don't either, but
I think we may be getting a little carried away, but at the same, no, I don't think we are.
I really don't
don't
think
know.
so.
I
Because
don't.
in the anticipation for this show, I've been thinking since I got home last night, like, okay, what are the silver linings that we can also present so people don't just think we're crapping on Auburn? And I'm not saying that, it's all bad. Like there's good to take away from yesterday if you really look for it. Um yeah, like Keandre Lambert Smith. I mean, that doesn't really help the team for next year, but
Guy's a
you
baller.
know, baller,
He's a baller.
150 yards, and those 2 insane receptions. But yeah, I just don't. I mean, obviously the recruiting's still good for now, um, but I know bad losses a lot of times don't necessarily lead. One bad loss doesn't necessarily lead to a decommitment, but a string of them will.
Mhm.
Um, if Auburn goes doesn't if Auburn loses to ULM and they end up moving on from Hugh Freeze, you'll see some decommitments there for sure.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my mom this morning about it, and I kind of was talking to her about, okay, how long can you actually point fingers at Brian Harsin? Like, we're not that far away from Freeze being here longer than Harsin has. We'll hit that point when Auburn plays Vanderbilt. Like that'll be the week that we cross into that threshold. So you can't still, and I know how bad Harsin was. Everyone does, but he wasn't there long enough to do the amount of damage that people apparently think. And I see the comments and replies now. Like I'm gonna get flamed for this and called a Harsin lover, which I'm not even gonna address that. But and I know he didn't do a good job with recruiting or building the program or anything like that. But I mean,
Brian Harsin never lost to New Mexico State in Jordan-Hare Stadium.
exactly.
I don't think Brian Harsin would have lost to Cal in Jordan-Hare Stadium.
I don't think so either.
I mean, we say that Arkansas came in and drubbed Auburn the game before he got fired. So I mean, it's all hypothetical, but people like to forget that Brian Harsin, after that Ole Miss game, or in 2021, Brian Harsin was 6-2 and in contention for SEC Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
Like that, the downfall of the Brian Harsin era at Auburn is crazy. Like he was on top and just like boom. That's wild.
I want
Obviously,
to
I
know what
wasn't.
happened on the way to College Station, Texas, because that's where it started.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you said, how much longer can you point fingers at Brian Harsin? You're getting to the point to where you can't. Obviously, like Freeze has mentioned, he mentioned last night in the presser. He's mentioned it numerous times. He's preached patience. He wants to build this thing through high school, and it's going to take time. I get that, but with that being said, um, what you're seeing on the field from Auburn right now has nothing to do with. It's not all 100% on talent.
Right.
That was kind of Freeze's excuse last year was didn't have the guys, and I mean rightfully so. He didn't have the guys last year. He went out and got some guys this year. He's got talent this year, but there's just been some really really sloppy play. And like I mentioned before, man, that's some of that comes from coaching, and I don't think you can point fingers at Brian Harsin anymore, too much longer at least. I mean, that's
No. After Halloween and we flipped the calendar from October to November, I don't want to hear another word about Brian Harsin from anyone involved in Auburn. Because it's just it's ran its course. There's been plenty of time to right whatever wrongs were caused by him.
yeah. Yep.
And I know that a lot of people are going to think that's a hot take that we just made, but I just really don't see how that's the case at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously I wasn't covering Auburn football when Brian Harsin was here, so I didn't get to see
I covered the tail end of it.
yeah, I mean, I didn't get to see the actual, inside operations of the program under Harsin. But from the outside looking in, man, obviously this is no hot take here. The man dug Auburn into a deep, deep hole.
Sure.
They already weren't necessarily the best team in the SEC or anything under Malzahn. That 2020 year was pretty rough. But he dug the hole even deeper, and I get where people. I mean, I get the whole, Brian Harsin's fault. I get it, but yeah, like you said, man. I mean, there's not too much longer you can point fingers at him.
Right. And I myself am a visual guy. A lot of people I know who listen to our show are visual learners. So I've got a visual here. It's September 22nd. Okay. You've got until October 31st. Then after that, you got to let it go. And you've got to point fingers at who's currently here. I don't feel like I could have explained that any more clearly.
Yep.
So another thing I want to talk about today is former Ole Miss quarterback Bo Wallace, who I believe was quarterback for both of their wins over Alabama in 2014 and 15, has taken to Twitter lately and has not been too kind in the things he has said about his former ball coach.
Mm-mm.
I kind of went down this thread last night. I kind of started reading a lot of these. It was close to my bedtime, so I can't remember it all word for word, but I just remember thinking like, wow, like that is that's something we need to talk about.
Yeah. He did not hold back on Hugh Freeze in his tweets yesterday. Obviously, it's a really long tweet, so if you want to go read it word for word,
It ain't hard to find.
yeah, I mean, Bo Wallace posted it. It's kind of crazy because like truthfully, man, Bo Wallace, who nobody would even be reading your tweet right now if it wasn't for Hugh Freeze. I
Right.
mean, um, that's crazy. I don't know if there is. I'm not going to sit here and say that I know how their relationship is. There could be some, you know, sour taste in Bo Wallace's mouth over something. No idea. I don't know. But I did kind of look into that, and I saw obviously where he was making tweets last year defending Hugh Freeze against Auburn,
Mhm. Yep.
calling him a top 5 play caller in the country. Um, all the big shebang about how he was an offensive guru, all that good stuff. And then yesterday, I mean, the man did not hold back on how, he throws his quarterbacks under the bus. It's never his fault. It's always his players' fault, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, at the same time, like, I mean, Hugh Freeze didn't throw 8 interceptions in the past 3 weeks. I mean,
True.
um, he told it how it is, and he also took credit for it. He said, obviously, I'm not doing a very good job coaching quarterbacks right now.
He
So, I
did.
mean, he didn't just sit there and say, my quarterbacks suck. It's all their fault. The man, he said he took accountability for it. It starts with him, it starts with his staff. And he told no lies when he said, I've got to find somebody who can throw the ball to our own guys and not to the other team. I mean,
Right.
that's not a hot take here, man. Your team leads the country in turnovers. Um, it's not throwing your players under the bus. That's just telling them how it is. Maybe lighting a fire up under them.
Mhm.
So kind of an L take in my opinion by Bo Wallace. Don't really know why he posted that, but I don't
I
know.
don't
Let's hear your let's hear your thoughts on that.
know. So anyone who knows me, and I feel like you would attest to this, loyalty is extremely important to me. Um, if you and I were to have a falling out and decide that we just couldn't work around each other anymore, we just couldn't do this show anymore, we just couldn't even be friends anymore, I'm not going to get on Twitter and just drag you. I'm not even going to go to our mutual friends and drag you. If anyone were to come to me and ask about what happened, I would just say, well, we just had some disagreements and thought it would be best to go our own separate ways. So, this is a man who gave you an opportunity to play quarterback in the SEC, who allowed you the opportunity to lead an offense that beat Nick Saban and Kirby Smart twice. Kirby Smart was there in 14 and 15, right? I know he wasn't 14. Okay. Um, I just don't. And why is it taking you this long? Like, why 6, 7 years after you're just like, oh, wouldn't it be fun if, or more than that, like 9, 10 years after you're like, oh, wouldn't it be fun if I did this today? And just start, dragging Freeze now and kicking him Wise down. And also, I feel like part of it is he just wants to stay relevant. Like, I'm not trying to be a hater. Like, obviously, I've never played quarterback in the SEC, but no one's talking about you anymore. Um, this is going to sound really mean, but no one cares about you anymore. You're not the best. You're not the best quarterback to play at Ole Miss in the last decade anymore. Jackson Dart's way better than you ever were. Jackson Dart's taken, or he did. Bo Wallace did lead them to being a top 5 team, so I'm not quite ready to say that Jackson Dart's taken them further than Bo Wallace did. But if you compare the two, I think Jackson Dart is seriously better. Because Bo Wallace did get to play with some pretty insane wide receivers. Um, but yeah, I just don't appreciate that. It's just kind of uncalled for, and I feel like a lot of people can see it for what it is. And I'm sure there's some truth to what he's saying. The part that stuck out to me the most was about him like playing injured to help Freeze win. I mean, that's just kind of, I hate to say this, but I feel like to an extent that's football. Like you're playing a sport that is outside of combat sports the most violent sport. The only other non-combat sport that I feel like you could make an argument for being more violent than football is ice hockey, and still, I don't think it's as violent as football. You're gonna get hurt, like you're gonna have lingering injuries. It's gonna happen, and if you didn't think that you could go, you should have told him that, and then he can't play you. And if you told him you were too hurt to play and you told him that and he was like, "Suck it up, Buttercup, get in there anyway," there's definitely resources at your disposal to help you in that situation. So
Yeah.
why didn't you do that then? And why are you waiting 9 years to just I know I'm kind of circling back to things I already said, but I just find it annoying and he's just bored and washed up and wants to try to be relevant. Is my kind of bottom line on it. And I really don't appreciate it at all.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was weird. I don't know. That's that's weird. You talk to a lot of former players from, Freeze's time at Ole Miss and Liberty. They love Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, like Malik Willis, can't say enough good things about him.
Chris Jones the other night. I mentioned it when we had Caleb on the show. Um, he was if he went and said if he could do it all over again, he'd go play for Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss. You've got guys like Tunzel and guys who come to Auburn to work out with Coach Dom and Hugh Freeze and stuff like that. So I mean, he's obviously very well respected.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess not everybody likes everybody though. So yeah. I also just realized we're 34 minutes into this thing and we really haven't even talked a whole lot about the game itself yesterday.
I kind of figured that would be the way it went.
Yeah. Yeah. There's not a whole lot to talk about.
No.
Not a whole lot. Obviously, Auburn's got to clean up turnovers. Um, Defense could not get off the field on third down, especially third and long. Um, Arkansas's 2 final touchdowns of the game come on third down. They had 5 third and 10 or longer. Arkansas did where they converted. One of their touchdowns came on a third and 19. So obviously, Auburn defense held firm throughout the game for the most part, and then really struggled to get off the field on third down. They gave up like 100 and can't remember, but gave up over 100 yards on the first 2 drives. Auburn's defense did, and then through the next 6 or 7 drives, held them to 96 yards. So I mean, all the defense played well. I thought Durkin had a good plan for Taylon Green. Yeah, he did get loose a couple of times, but I thought for the most part it was pretty good. Um, Obviously, the big storyline now is the quarterback controversy, who is going to start against Oklahoma. I would bet that would be Peyton Thorne.
Me too.
Totally not gonna lie, did not see Peyton Thorne coming out of the half as a starter. I didn't.
I
I did
I
not.
put up a poll on my Twitter as soon as halftime started and
Saw that.
asking about that, and I just kind of had a gut feeling.
I didn't. I don't know, man. I didn't expect it really. Not to say that I didn't expect him to come in at all in the second half, but I don't know. Obviously, they did what they thought they needed to do to provide a spark. So I mean, kudos to the staff for that. Um, but yeah, I mean, turnovers, man, turnovers, turnovers, turnovers. It's the storyline of this game. Damari Alston, Jarquez Hunter. Jarquez, I don't think had a fumble yesterday,
No.
but for your running back room to be as good as they are, as well respected as they are, as productive as they are, they have got a bad problem holding on to the football.
Yeah,
You got a
they
really,
do.
really bad problem with that. That's got to get cleaned up. Auburn's offensive line stayed as the same five throughout the whole entire game yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
It's the first time that's happened all season. Um, I mean, it kind of felt like Auburn abandoned the run game. I kind of wrote about that in one of my takeaways. Um, Jarquez Hunter started off his first 6 carries with 47 yards. Um, I mean, they were gashing that Arkansas defense, and Jarquez Hunter finished with 12 carries and 67 yards. I don't quite understand, especially with the struggling quarterback play, why Auburn didn't run the ball more. Doesn't make sense. Not really sure. They started off the second half with 7 straight passes. Um, that's just weird. I don't know. That's weird. Um, but yeah, I mean, punt return still really up in the air. Keontae Scott still kind of struggling there. Um, the Oscar Chapman fake punt, don't know if that was designed, if that was him. Um, Either way, it falls on the coaches because why in the world would he have that thought in that situation? That's your fault for not telling him to kick the ball. Um, so weird, weird. I don't know, but at the same time, man, you look at the game late, and despite the 5 turnovers, despite some of the defensive woes on third down, Auburn was still in this game, and that's what's the most frustrating part for Auburn fans is the fact that they still had a chance.
Yeah. Uh, I just I Oscar's such a smart player. I just can't see him being like, "Oh, wouldn't this be cool?"
I mean, he kinda showed a little bit of athleticism there with the spin
Yeah,
move, and, I mean, I wasn't expecting that, but at the same time, dude, punt that ball away. Like,
yeah,
unless you see just 20 yards of straight green with no white jersey, punt that ball away. Like,
yeah,
that I don't know, man, that didn't make any sense, and obviously, just like we said earlier, man, shooting themselves in the foot, so undisciplined. Penalties. I mean, you get 2 picks yesterday, and you think the momentum is switched, and that's the spark that they finally needed or they got that they needed. And then you just go out there and you have 3 and outs to, you know, complement the interceptions or whatever. But it's just, I mean, it's just they don't. It's kind of got me at a loss for words here, man. Really, I mean, it's kind of baffling the
So
way
our
that.
next activity for today, we're each going to rank the four quarterbacks on probability from most probable to least probable to start the Arkansas game. So we're going to go 4, 4, 3,
Start the
3,
Oklahoma
2,
game.
2, 1, 1. That's what I meant to say, yes. So you go for which of the four quarterbacks is least likely to start the Oklahoma game?
Walker Wyatt,
Okay, I'm going Holden Garner.
Holden Garner. So Peyton Thorne's going to start the Oklahoma game. I mean, let's.
Hank Brown.
Yeah, I guess it kind of stinks for Hank, man, because
So are we just bailing on the game or what?
I guess I don't know what. I'm going to go least to greatest opportunity is Walker White, Holden Garner, Hank Brown, and Peyton Thorne. Same as
Mine
that.
is Hank Brown, Holden Garner. No, excuse me. Hank Brown, Holden. Yeah, I think it'll be Thorne, but I think Holden Garner's going to be number 2.
I don't know. Obviously, Freeze has got to figure something out there. Got to figure something out. Sam Jackson, that's who my money's on.
Zach Calzada.
Yeah. Wow. Run the
Oh,
Wild.
man.
That looked really good against Cal. So I'm just kidding. It did not. It looked horrible against Cal.
Oh, goodness. Well, yeah, no, we don't need to be running a bunch of quarterbacks out there. They need to find somebody who can stick with one.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting to see what Freeze has got to say tomorrow.
I cannot wait.
Um,
That'll be appointment viewing on War Eagle Plus and the SEC Network.
yeah. We will I don't know, we'll talk to him tomorrow. We'll see what they got. And I don't know. There's not too much else to talk about this situation.
No, there's not. Disappointing.
Yeah.
Very disappointing. Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Daniel J. Locke. You can find my written work at, Auburn Tigers on SI.com.
Is that it? You want me to go now?
Yeah, I mean, I said all I had to say.
I thought you were gonna keep going. All right. Yeah, you can find my written work at 1819 News. Some with the Auburn Plainsmen. You can follow me on X at Logan F. Fowler.
Well, that's gonna do it here. Do it for us here today. Well, we'll be previewing Oklahoma next time we speak, so that should be pretty interesting.
Yep.
Well, as always, thank you for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, share, all of that. Give us any feedback. If you like what we're doing, let us know. If you don't, please tell us how you think we can improve. We want this to be an enjoyable show for you to listen to. But thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to speaking to you again soon.